throwaway account because this feels too personal to share under my real one. I don't even know how to start this because my head is spinning. My wife, Lauren, just told me she wants a divorce. After 23 years of marriage, she drops this on me out of nowhere. We were having one of our usual quiet dinners at home when she says, "Henry, we need to talk." That phrase alone set my nerves on edge. It's never good when someone says that, right? I tried to play it cool, but she looked so serious, like she'd been rehearsing this for weeks. Then she says, "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I feel like I need to find myself." I asked what she meant by that, and she launches into this whole explanation about how she's been feeling stuck, how she's been reflecting on her life, and how she's realized she's never really lived for herself. She said our marriage has been good but too safe. She didn't even sound like herself. It was like she was reading from a script. I was stunned. I told her that I thought we had a good life together. I asked if there was something wrong, something I'd done, or something we could fix. She just shook her head and said it wasn't about me. It was about her needing more. That's when she dropped the real bomb. Her friend Vanessa had been helping her think all this through. Vanessa, of all people. Vanessa, who has been married 5 times and has a new boyfriend every 6 months. Vanessa, who can't even commit to a flavor of ice cream, let alone a relationship. I tried to keep calm and asked if Vanessa had been putting ideas into her head, but Lauren snapped at me. She said Vanessa was just helping her see things clearly, like what she wanted out of life. And apparently what she wants is freedom, new experiences, and maybe new relationships. She didn't say the word divorce right away. Instead, she talked about the idea of opening up our marriage. She said it like it was no big deal, like I should just go along with it because it would be fair for both of us. I asked her if she was already seeing someone else, and she got defensive, saying, "This isn't about anyone else right now. This is about me." But come on, right? Who just randomly decides to open up their marriage without already having someone in mind? I don't even know what to think. We've been married for 23 years. We raised 2 kids together. We built a life. And now she's talking about throwing it all away, or at least changing it so drastically it might as well be the same thing. I asked her to give me some time to process, and she agreed, but I can tell she's already made up her mind. She keeps saying this is for the best. But for who? Because it sure doesn't feel like it's for me. I'm just sitting here, replaying the conversation in my head, trying to figure out how we got here. We've had our ups and downs, like any couple, but I never thought we'd end up like this. I don't even know if I'm angry, heartbroken, or just numb. What do I do? Do I fight for our marriage? Do I agree to this open idea, even though it feels so wrong? Or do I just let her go and figure out how to start over at 50? I'm completely lost. Thanks for all the advice on my last post. I read through every comment, and while it was a mixed bag of perspectives, one thing became clear. I needed to take control of the situation before it controlled me. When Lauren brought up the idea of opening the marriage, my gut reaction was to fight for us, to plead with her to stay. But after taking some time to think, and reading your brutally honest comments, I realized something important. She had already checked out. Whether or not someone else is involved, and I have my suspicions, Lauren had mentally packed her bags. So, when she brought it up again the next evening, I did something I didn't think I had in me. I agreed, calmly, without anger or tears. I told her, if this is what you want, then I'll support it. But let's be smart about it. You should have seen her face. I think she expected me to break down or beg her to stay. But I didn't. Instead, I laid out a plan. We'd do a 90-day separation. No dating other people, no wild experiments, just time apart to really think about what we want. If at the end of those 90 days she still wanted a divorce, we'd move forward. She looked relieved but also confused, like my reaction threw her off. She kept saying, "I just want to make sure this is the right choice for both of us." I nodded and said, "Exactly. That's why we'll take some time to figure it out." Then I brought up the legal and financial aspects. I didn't do it to be petty or cutthroat. I just knew we needed to address the reality of what divorce means. I told her we'd need to talk to a mediator and figure out how to divide our assets fairly. I brought up the house, the savings, even the car payments. I could see her eyes glaze over a bit, like she hadn't really thought about all the logistics. Lauren said she wanted to keep things amicable, which I agreed with, but I made it clear, amicable doesn't mean one-sided. I told her we'd be splitting everything equally, no exceptions. She started to say something about keeping the house for stability, but I cut her off, reminding her that our kids are grown and out of the house. Stability wasn't the issue here, fairness was. Honestly, I think my calm, logical approach threw her for a loop. She's used to me being the emotional one, the guy who avoids conflict and tries to keep the peace. But this time I'm not just rolling over. If she's ready to walk away from 23 years of marriage, then I'm going to make sure we both walk away on equal footing. We haven't told anyone yet. Not the kids, not our friends. She wants to wait until we're sure about what we're doing, which I think is code for, I don't want to be the bad guy. But I'm fine with that for now. The next 90 days will tell us what we need to know. It's weird. Part of me feels like I should be devastated, but I'm not. I think I've realized that if Lauren doesn't want to fight for us, then maybe she's not the person I thought she was. And if that's the case, then maybe I'll be better off without her. That's where I'm at. I'm holding my ground, staying calm, and letting her see what life looks like without me. If she still wants out after 90 days, then I'll let her go. But I'm not going to let her steamroll me in the process. Alright, so after agreeing to the 90-day separation, I decided to take charge of the logistics. If this is happening, I'm not going to let it turn into a chaotic mess. I made a detailed list of everything we'd need to figure out. Finances, living arrangements, even mundane stuff like who takes care of the yard. Lauren seemed surprised at how methodical I was, but I think it was a relief for both of us to have a plan. First, I suggested that she stay in the house. I know that might sound like a weird move, but hear me out. Our kids are grown and out of the house, but this is still the place they come back to for holidays, visits, all that stuff. If I moved out and Lauren stayed, it would feel more stable for them. Plus, I'll admit, I didn't want to be the one rattling around in a house full of memories. I'd rather get a fresh start somewhere new. Lauren agreed, but she looked a little hesitant. I asked her if she wanted to stay in the house long-term, and she said she wasn't sure. She's been talking a lot about finding herself, so I wouldn't be surprised if she sold the place eventually. For now, though, it's her base. Next on the list was finances. We sat down and went through everything, bank accounts, retirement savings, debts, all of it. I insisted we split everything 50-50ths, no exceptions. She didn't argue, but I could tell she was uncomfortable talking about money. Lauren has never been great with finances. She's more of a let's not think about it kind of person. I told her we'd need a mediator to help us figure out the final details if we went through with the divorce. Then came the fun part, adjusting to separate lives. I've already started looking for a short-term rental. Nothing fancy, just a small apartment nearby so I can stay close to work and the house if the kids visit. I've also started changing my address for bills and setting up a new bank account in just my name. It's a weird feeling, like I'm preparing for life as a single guy again. Lauren, on the other hand, hasn't done much yet. She says she's still processing everything, which is fine, but it's frustrating to see her dragging her feet when I'm over here handling all the practical stuff. I think she's waiting to see how she feels after a few weeks of separation before making any big moves. The hardest part so far has been keeping this quiet. The kids don't know yet, and neither do our friends. We agreed to wait until we're more certain about the divorce before telling anyone. But it feels strange to act like everything's normal when it's not. Lauren and I still share the same bed for now, which is awkward to say the least. It's like we're roommates instead of a married couple. Honestly, I'm just trying to stay focused on the logistics and not get too emotional. There's something weirdly empowering about having a plan. I can't control what Lauren does or how she feels, but I can control how I handle this. If she thinks this separation is going to be some easy path to finding herself, she's got another thing coming. Life doesn't magically fix itself when you walk away from 23 years of marriage. I'm not saying I'm hoping she regrets this, but okay, maybe I am a little. Anyway, the next steps are clear. Finalize the separation arrangements, start living apart, and figure out what this new normal looks like. If Lauren's really serious about this, I'll respect her decision. But I'll be damned if I let her walk all over me in the process. So here's where things get interesting, or maybe just a little awkward. While Lauren's out there finding herself, I've been thinking about my own future. I didn't want to sit around feeling sorry for myself or waiting for her to make up her mind. If this marriage is truly over, I need to start looking forward, right? That's when I had a thought that surprised even me. What if I put myself back out there? First, it felt ridiculous. I haven't been single in over 2 decades. I wouldn't even know where to start. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there might already be women in my life who are interested. So yeah, I made a list. I know how that sounds, but hear me out. This isn't some sleazy who can I hook up with thing. It's more of a mental inventory of people I've always had good connections with, women who might see me as more than just a coworker or friend now that I'm technically single. The first name on the list? Amanda. She's a colleague of mine, 18 years younger, and let's just say she hasn't been shy about her feelings. For the past year or so, Amanda has gone out of her way to chat with me at work, compliment me, and even joke about how she's always liked older guys. At the time, I brushed it off as harmless flirting, but now, I'm starting to wonder if there's more to it. Amanda's smart, funny, and drop-dead gorgeous. She's also incredibly ambitious, which is something I've always admired. But the age gap is significant. I'm 50, and she's 32. It feels like a stretch, even though I know relationships like that can work. I haven't acted on anything yet, obviously. For one, I'm still technically married. For another, Amanda has no idea what's going on with Lauren and me. But it's hard not to wonder. If I told her I was single, what would she say? Then there's Sarah, an old friend from college who's recently divorced. We've kept in touch over the years, mostly through social media, and she's always been supportive. When I posted a vague status about big life changes, she sent me a private message asking if I was okay. We ended up chatting for hours, reminiscing about the past and catching up on each other's lives. There's definitely a connection there, but I don't know if it's romantic or just nostalgia. The other names on my list are more of a long shot, women I know casually or through mutual friends. None of them have shown any clear interest, but they're the kind of people I could see myself getting along with if I ever decided to start dating again. Making this list was a weirdly empowering exercise. It reminded me that I'm still desirable, that I still have options. Lauren's not the only one who can explore new possibilities. If she thinks she's the only one who can start fresh, she's wrong. That said, I'm not rushing into anything. The 90-day separation is still in place, and I want to honor that. But knowing that I have a future beyond this marriage, whether it's with Amanda, Sarah, or someone I haven't even met yet, is helping me feel more optimistic. For the first time in weeks, I'm starting to feel like I'll be okay no matter what happens with Lauren. And honestly, that feels pretty damn good. Well, things have taken an unexpected turn. I didn't think Lauren would care much about what I do during our separation. After all, she's the one who wanted it. But it turns out she does care. A lot. It all started when I casually mentioned to her that Kelly's sister asked about me. Kelly is one of my coworkers, and her sister is recently single. Apparently, Kelly had mentioned me in a conversation, and her sister expressed interest in meeting me sometime. I didn't think much of it. I haven't even met the woman yet. But when I brought it up to Lauren, her reaction was intense. Her eyes narrowed, and she got this sharp tone in her voice. Kelly's sister? Really? She said, like I'd done something wrong. I reminded her that we're separated and that meeting new people is part of the process. She shot back with, "You didn't waste any time, did you?" I was stunned. This is coming from the same woman who said she wanted to find herself and explore other relationships. Now she's acting like I've committed some kind of betrayal. And that's not even the craziest part. She somehow found out about my list. I don't know how. Maybe she saw me jotting down names, or maybe I slipped up in a conversation. But she knows about it and she's furious. "You have waitresses and cashiers on there?" She practically shouted at me last night. "What? Are you just making a list of every woman who smiles at you?" I tried to stay calm and explain that the list isn't some sleazy tally of potential hookups. It's just a way for me to think about what my life might look like after this marriage. But she wasn't having it. She said it was disrespectful, and that I was treating our separation like a free pass. I reminded her, as gently as I could, that she was the one who suggested we take this time apart. I also pointed out that she's had plenty of emotional support from her friend Vanessa, who I strongly suspect has her own ulterior motives for encouraging this whole thing. But Lauren completely ignored that and doubled down, saying she couldn't believe I was already lining up options. The jealousy was obvious, even though she tried to mask it as outrage. She started grilling me about the women on the list, especially Amanda. "Isn't she that young girl from your office? Do you seriously think that's appropriate?" she said. Her tone was practically dripping with sarcasm. I told her that my list is none of her business and that I haven't acted on anything yet. But honestly, seeing her get this worked up makes me think maybe she does care more than she's letting on. The irony is almost too much. Lauren wanted to explore her options, to see what life is like without me. But now that she realizes I might be doing the same thing, she's suddenly territorial. I'm not gonna lie, it feels kind of satisfying to see her squirm. I don't know what this means for the future. Maybe this jealousy is a sign that she's rethinking the whole separation. Or maybe it's just her pride taking a hit because she thought I'd be sitting around waiting for her while she figured things out. Either way, I'm not letting it derail me. I'm sticking to the plan. The 90-day separation is still on, and I'm still focusing on myself. If Lauren wants to have a conversation about where we're headed, I'm open to that. But if she's just going to nitpick my choices while refusing to take responsibility for her own, that's on her. It's strange. For the first time in this whole mess, I feel like I have the upper hand. So, things just got even more bizarre. Lauren, who's been so insistent on finding herself and exploring new relationships, seems to have hit a major roadblock. And honestly, I don't even know how to feel about it. A few days ago, she came home looking unusually upset. I asked if everything was okay, and she gave me some vague excuse about a tough day at work. I didn't press her because, well, we're separated and I figured it wasn't my place. But she kept acting strange. More distracted than usual, like her mind was somewhere else. Then the truth came out. She had tried to start something with her colleague, James. Now, I didn't know much about James before this. Lauren had mentioned him a few times in passing, usually in the context of work meetings or office gossip. But apparently there was more to the story. James is younger, much younger. I'm talking early 30s, if that. From what I've gathered, Lauren saw him as her ticket to a fresh start, a way to prove to herself that she's still desirable or whatever. But here's where it gets messy. James is married. Not only that, but his wife and kids are planning to move to our city to be closer to him. Lauren didn't know this when she started pursuing him, and when she found out, she was mortified. I got the whole story in bits and pieces. Apparently, she had been flirting with James for weeks, testing the waters to see if he was interested. She thought he was giving her signals, smiling at her, complimenting her, making small talk in the office kitchen. So she decided to make a move. From what she told me, it wasn't subtle. She invited him out for drinks after work, just the two of them. During their conversation, she confessed that she'd been feeling a connection with him and wanted to see where it might lead. That's when James dropped the bomb. He's happily married and excited for his family to join him in the city. Lauren tried to backtrack, saying she must have misunderstood, but it was too late. She said James was polite about it, but she could tell he was uncomfortable. She's now worried about how this will affect her reputation at work. When she told me all of this, I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry for her. Part of me wanted to say, "What did you expect? You're chasing a fantasy." But I held back. Instead, I just listened while she vented about how humiliated she felt and how she was starting to question whether this whole finding herself thing was a mistake. It's hard to describe how I feel about this. On one hand, I hate seeing her so upset. Despite everything, I don't want her to suffer. On the other hand, it's hard not to feel a little vindicated. She's been acting like I'm some boring old relic holding her back. But now she's realizing that the grass isn't always greener. I didn't rub it in her face, but I did point out that maybe this whole situation is a sign that we both need to take a step back and reevaluate what we want. She didn't say much, but I could tell my words hit home. For now, I'm staying focused on my own life. I've been spending more time with friends, getting back into hobbies I'd neglected, and even reconnecting with a few people I'd lost touch with over the years. It feels good to have some direction, even if everything else is still uncertain. Lauren, meanwhile, seems to be at a crossroads. She hasn't said anything about ending the separation early, but her whole attitude has shifted. She's less confident, less sure of herself. Part of me wonders if she's starting to realize what she's risking by walking away from our marriage. Who knows what'll happen next? All I know is that I'm finally starting to feel like I can handle whatever comes my way. Whether Lauren and I work things out or go our separate ways for good, I'm gonna be okay. And for the first time in a long time, I actually believe that. Just when I thought things couldn't get messy, Vanessa decided to stick her nose in our business again. I swear, if I never hear her name again, it'll be too soon. Lauren's been leaning on her throughout this whole separation, and now it's clear that Vanessa's advice is doing more harm than good. Here's what happened. A couple of days ago, Lauren and I sat down to go over some final details about the separation agreement. Everything had been pretty straightforward up to this point. We'd agreed on splitting assets, she'd keep the house for now, and I'd move into a rental. I thought we were finally making progress. But then, out of nowhere, Lauren brings up the kids and the family home. Mind you, our kids are adults. They're out of the house and living their own lives. But suddenly, Lauren starts saying things like, the kids will feel more comfortable if we keep the house in the family, and it's only fair that I stay here for their sake. I immediately knew this wasn't coming from Lauren. This had Vanessa written all over it. Vanessa's one of those people who always thinks she's the smartest person in the room. She's had 5 failed marriages, and yet she acts like she's a relationship guru. From what I've heard, she's been telling Lauren to stand her ground and use what she has to get the upper hand. And apparently what Lauren has is the house and some misguided idea that the kids care where she lives. I let Lauren finish her little speech, then calmly asked if she was suggesting I walk away from my share of the house. She hesitated. She knows I'm not stupid, but eventually admitted that Vanessa thought it would be best for everyone if I just let it go. That's when I put my foot down. I told Lauren point blank that I'm not going to be manipulated. I reminded her that the house is a marital asset, and if she wants to keep it, she'll need to buy out my share. I also made it clear that bringing the kids into this was a low blow. They're adults, and they don't need us playing tug-of-war over some empty nest. She tried to argue, but I wasn't having it. I pulled out a printout of our financials, yes, I came prepared, and showed her exactly how we'd split the house's value if we sold it. I even had a list of comparable properties in the area to back up my numbers. She didn't have a leg to stand on. I could see the frustration on her face. Vanessa's little plan had fallen apart, and now Lauren was left scrambling. I told her that I'm willing to work with her to make things fair, but I won't be strong-armed into giving up what's rightfully mine. The funniest part? Later that evening, Lauren tried to backpedal. She said she wasn't trying to manipulate me, that she was just thinking out loud. Yeah, right. I didn't push it, but I know the truth. Vanessa's been in her ear, filling her head with bad advice, and now it's blowing up in her face. The whole thing has made me even more confident in my decision to stand my ground. Lauren's showing me a side of herself I didn't fully understand before. Someone who's willing to play games to get what she wants. But I'm not the same guy I was at the start of this separation. I've learned to be smarter, to stay calm, and to protect myself. Vanessa's tricks might have worked on the old me, but not anymore. I'm done being the guy who bends over backward to keep the peace. If Lauren wants to play games, she's going to lose. At this point, I'm just counting down the days until this separation is over. Whether we end up divorcing or somehow patching things up, I'm not letting anyone, Lauren, Vanessa, or anyone else, walk all over me again. I wasn't expecting this, but Lauren wants to reconcile. After everything that's happened, the separation, the list, Vanessa's interference, James, all of it, she came to me last night and said she wants to fix things. She started by admitting that she'd made a mess of everything. She apologized for listening to Vanessa, for trying to use the kids and the house as leverage, and for pursuing James. She said she's been doing a lot of soul-searching, for real this time, apparently, and realized that the life she was trying to chase wasn't what she wanted after all. She even told me she's cut ties with Vanessa. I didn't believe her at first, but she showed me the text message where she told Vanessa she couldn't take her advice anymore. Vanessa didn't take it well, of course. She accused Lauren of being ungrateful and weak, but Lauren stood firm. I'll admit that took me by surprise. Then she brought out a piece of paper. It was a list of reasons why I should stay with her. I won't lie, it felt strange hearing her lay it all out like that, almost like she was giving a sales pitch. But she seemed sincere, and some of the reasons hit me harder than I expected. She talked about our history together, the life we built, and the love we shared for so many years. She said she misses the way we used to laugh together, the way I'd always support her no matter what, and the way we were a team through everything. She also took full responsibility for her actions. She admitted that she let herself get swept up in Vanessa's toxic advice and the fantasy of starting fresh. She said she realizes now that she's been running from her own insecurities and blaming me for things that weren't my fault. Lauren promised to make changes, real ones. She said she wants to go to therapy not just for herself but for us as a couple. She wants to rebuild trust and prove to me that she can be the partner I deserve. I didn't say much while she was talking. Honestly, I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me kept thinking about all the hurt and chaos of the past few months. It's hard to just forget all of that. After she finished, she asked me what I thought. I told her the truth. I need time. I'm not going to make any rash decisions, and I'm not going to let her words sway me without actions to back them up. If she's serious about fixing things, I need to see real effort. She seemed to understand. She didn't argue or push me for an answer, which was a good sign. She just said, I know I've messed up, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. I don't know what's going to happen. On one hand, it feels good to see her taking responsibility and wanting to fight for us. On the other hand, there's a lot of pain and mistrust to work through. For now, I'm keeping my focus on myself and staying cautious. If Lauren truly wants to reconcile, she's going to have to prove it. Not just with words, but with consistent actions. One thing's for sure, this whole experience has changed me. I'm not the same guy who would have jumped at the chance to fix things no matter what. I know my worth now, and I'm not settling for anything less than a relationship built on mutual respect, trust, and real effort. We'll see where this goes. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time. I never thought I'd say this, but I asked Lauren out on a date. After everything we've been through, the separation, the fights, Vanessa's interference, James, and all the chaos, I realized that if we were going to try again, it couldn't be as the same people in the same relationship. That relationship is over. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something new. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. I've been thinking about it ever since Lauren gave me that list of reasons why I should stay. She's been doing what she promised, taking action instead of just talking. She started therapy on her own and even found a couples therapist for us. She's been honest and open in ways I didn't think she could be. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm seeing the real her. Not the version of herself she created to impress Vanessa or chase some fantasy, but the woman I fell in love with all those years ago. But I knew I couldn't just go back to what we had. Too much has happened, and pretending otherwise would only set us up for failure. If we were going to try again, it had to be from scratch. So last night, after dinner, I sat her down and told her how I felt. I said, our old relationship is over. We can't go back to the way things were, and honestly, I don't think we should. But if you're serious about starting over, if you're willing to build something new with me, I'd like to take you out on a date. Her eyes welled up with tears, and for a second, I thought I'd made a mistake. But then she smiled, really smiled, and said, I'd love that. We set some ground rules right away. This isn't about falling back into old habits or pretending nothing's changed. We're starting fresh, which means taking things slow, being honest about our feelings, and communicating like we should have been doing all along. I booked a reservation at a nice restaurant in town, one we haven't been to in years. It feels fitting to go somewhere new for this next chapter. I'm not naive. I know this isn't going to be easy. There's still a lot of hurt and mistrust to work through, and part of me is still scared that this will end in more heartbreak. But for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. This might not be the fairy tale ending I imagined when we first got married. But maybe that's okay. Life isn't perfect, and neither are we. But if we're both willing to put in the work, maybe we can build something even better than what we had before. Wish me luck. Our date is tomorrow night, and I have no idea how it's going to go. All I know is that I'm ready to find out.